Mock test 10, evolution of constitution administrative changes. Let's look at the first question. Who among the following was associated with the introduction of Hilbert Bill in India? Could you tell me the answer? The answer is Lord Ripon. Okay. The answer is Lord Ripon, which is a question I don't have to substantiate on. Very important. Okay, event is something that I don't have to substantiate on. Let's move on. Which among the following recommendations are included in the Nehru report? Now, the Nehru Committee report was brought in due to the Birkenhead challenge. Now, why did Lord Birkenhead challenge the Indians? He challenged the Indians to frame their own constitution on the background of Indian nationalists boycotting the Simon Commission. Okay, the Birkenhead challenge. Now, what were the recommendations of the Simon Commission? Of course, dominion status for India, yes. It demanded the abolition of India office in Britain, yes. This also reservation fees for Muslims of the central and provinces, yes. One must remember that this was put as an alternative solution to separate electorates. The Nehru Committee had basically condemned the idea of separate electorates. So this is another idea that one must know. The answer there is 1, 2, and 3. D. Okay, Birkenhead challenge. Now, in the context of modern Indian history, which of the following influenced the evolution of Indian civil services? Okay, Government of India Act 1858. Is that right? Now, before that, what are the other important recommendations in Nehru Committee espoused? Okay, can you tell me what are the recommendations? One, of course, fundamental rights. For the first time, Indians were. It was promised that Indians will be granted fundamental rights after independence. Nehru report. Okay, division according to linguistic division of states. Linguistic reorganization was another very important tenet that was asserted in the Nehru Committee. Let's move on. In the context of modern Indian history, which of the following influenced the evolution of Indian civil services? Government of India Act 1850. How did it influence it? The Imperial Civil Services. Okay. Imperial Civil Services of Lord Canning. Okay. This was something that took place during that time. The Government of India Act 1858 renamed the Indian Civil Service as the Imperial Civil Services since the civil services came under the crown. Now, who was responsible in managing this? Secretary of State. It was over him that the responsibility fell. Secretary of State. Okay, remember that too. Now, the next part, Aitchison Commission. Okay, Aitchison Commission, First Civil Services Reorganization Commission, something that you must know. First Civil Services Commission. Aitchison Commission, 1886, appointed during the time of Lord Dufferin. Government of India Act 1919. What did it do? Of course, in examination both in England and India. Very important provision brought about in this particular commission. Okay, I hope you remember about all that. Now, what other thing did come about? What other important tenet came about as part of the Government of India Act 1919? Can you tell me? The separation of civil services into two services, All India Services and Public Services. Okay. Remember this too. So I hope the answers there is clear. 1, 2, and 3. Remember the individual points. Okay. Which among the following is true regarding policy of subsidiary alliance? Again, Lord Wellesley's policy of subsidiary alliance. Indian native states ceded control over internal affairs. No, external affairs. Okay. See, internal affairs, the covenant of the civil subsidiary alliance policy promised that the company would stay aloof from internal developments within the native states. It extended that promise. Of course, that was not met in the spirit of the letter. The company appointed the resident who slowly and steadily developed his own influential sphere within the native states. But whatever, this was the reform that came about. Okay, so external affairs, it was external affairs. The native state was asked to cede their sovereignty. British military regiment maintained within natives. This was also for its protection. So the native states, it was made responsible to maintain a regiment within its headquarters. Okay, this was a company regiment that would be funded and maintained by the native state. The funding was to be directly remitted to the British treasury and not given directly to the soldiers. It would be remitted to the British treasury, who then would then distribute it to the soldiers. Okay, it was mandated for the company. So this is one of the. Is this right? Yes, it is. See, under the policy of subsidiary alliance, those allies who came under it became protected states. And it was mandated that the East India Company would provide security to such states in the event of an attack. Okay, so they became protected states. Am I clear there? So remember that too. So this is something that you must remember. So the answer there is 2 and 3. Okay, where A is wrong. Now, let's move on. Which of the following was for impacts of the Cornwallis Code in modern Indian history? Introduction of permanent settlement, yes. Okay, Cornwallis Code, revenue, it encompasses revenue, administrative, and judicial changes. It even led to the evolution of the police force, which comes under administrative services. So, in introduction of the permanent settlement system, yes. Introduction of separation of powers, yes. He introduced separation of powers between the executive and judicial sphere. Okay, thus appointing European judges in turn for district collectors. European judges would be appointed. Now, do not think that judges meant literally European judges. No. What it did was the members from the civil services were now bifurcated into two. One set of people would become district collectors who would be responsible in collecting revenue. The other set of people would be trained as European judges, or would be trained as judges who would be then absorbed into the judicial service. Okay, who would be then absorbed into the judiciary. So both of them would never overlap. The spheres of power would never overlap with each other. That is the kind of idea that was given out. Okay, the system of judiciary was slowly evolving, so they didn't have enough personnel. So it was the civil servants who were trained as both, but then the powers would not mutually, or there would not be any mutual overlapping of spheres of power. Okay. Now, representation of Indian administration increased. No, he was an Anglicizer. Done. Okay. Cornwallis Code caused increased Anglicization. So I hope the answer there is clear. 1, 2, and 3. So sorry, 1 and 2. With the third one going wrong. Okay, it was an Anglicizer, and the representation of Indians never increased under it. Consider the following statement. Secretary of State. Again, centralization, the theme of centralization. Okay. The Secretary of State was a British cabinet member in charge of Indian affairs. Yes, he was. I don't have to elaborate on that. He was considered to be the minister responsible for handling Indian affairs. Okay. So the office was responsible for heading the imperial services. We have already mentioned about that. Yes. Executive Council was established in 18 to assist the function of the office. Is that right? No, it isn't. Okay. Though my tone may have sounded condescending, that is wrong actually. Okay. It was not the Executive Council. The Executive Council were a group of advisors that advised the Governor General of India, or the Viceroy. Okay. It was created as per the provisions of the Indian Councils Act 1861, where, if you remember, the legislative and the executive functions were separated, and a separate legislative council was constituted. Okay. The legislative and executive wing of the Viceroy Supreme Council was separated. A legislative council was constituted separately as a separate office. So Viceroy lost his legislative powers. Now the executive powers he maintained. So these executive powers were to be exercised by a set of advisors. Okay, who were then, which was the council then named as the Executive Council. Okay, I hope you've understood. It was established in 1852 to assist the function of the office, which is wrong. Executive Council was established in 1852 to assist the function. No, this is wrong. Okay, this is with regards to GG. Now, which council was established to help the Secretary of State? Council of India, 14-member advisory council who worked in the India office of the Secretary of State. Okay. Now, so the answer there is 1 and 2. Let's move on. Which of the following are the provisions included in the cabinet mission proposals? First, compulsory grouping of provinces. Yes, of course. Remember, section A, B, and C. Okay, so these sections came about as other provisions of the cabinet mission, with section A being Hindu dominated, section B and C being Muslim dominated. Okay, residuary powers to the center. No, cabinet mission went contrarian to the spirit of the 1935 Act. It offered residuary powers to the provinces. This was to pacify Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the Muslim League, who were very strongly vouching for provincial autonomy. Okay, so this actually brought about the concept of provincial autonomy, or cemented the idea of provincial autonomy. Okay, residuary powers with the center, residuary powers with the provinces. So this is a rarity. Okay, but this was not accepted in spirit. That is why later on we stuck to the 1935 Act's provision of residuary powers to the center, where today residuary powers are with the center actually. Then it was with the Governor General. Okay. All the members of constitution indirectly, no, never. The princely states, members of the princely states nominated. Okay, so I hope the answer there is clear. One only, A. Now, what other important provisions came about as per the Cabinet Mission recommendation? Rejection of Pakistan. Very important recommendation that came about. Okay. Rejection of Pakistan. And always remember about paramountcy with the native states. Okay. All that. So, A, one only is the answer. In the context of colonial administration in India, which among the following is our correct regarding dominion status? It refers to an autonomous community within the British Empire. Yes, it does. It is an autonomous community within the British Empire. The dominion status in its inception meant, what does it mean? What does dominion status mean actually? Dominion status meant that also meant self-government, that India would be a dominion within the Commonwealth, which would share a similar autonomous status as Canada and Australia. See, Canada and Australia had autonomy for all for all the sakes. Okay, so they had autonomy for all purposes. So India would share similar status, but the British never conceded to that particular demand. They would never offer India dominion status. Only later did they. Sorry, they would never offer India dominion status immediately. See, our demand for dominion status started from the Swadeshi movement. Do you remember Swaraj? Swaraj is dominion status. Purna Swaraj is complete independence. India was never offered dominion status. No, August offer, Cripps mission, all of which, but these were just too late and too little. That is why the Indians started to boycott it. By which time we had actually changed our goals to Purna Swaraj. Remember this too. So one only. Okay, move on. Let's move on. Which among the following is that correct regarding Indian Councils Act? No, this is with regards to the 1909 Indian Councils Act. This is right, but the wrong Indian Councils Act. 1909, the Morley Minto reforms, ICA, separate electorates for various classes, and in which a subset was introduced for a community, which is the communal electorate, the Muslim community. Indirect elections center, no. Again, ICA, 1909. Okay, see, the concept of indirect elections emerges in the 1892 Act, but that was for the Provincial Legislative Council. Okay, 1892 Act was for the Provincial Legislative Council and not for the Central Legislative Council. The concept emerges in 1892, and indirect elections became a nationwide phenomenon in 1909. Direct elections became a nationwide phenomenon in 1919. Okay, then suffrage was extended in 1935. Okay. The members of Legislative Council were given the right to discuss and no. See, all this emerges in the 1909 Act. Okay, prior to which the members had the right to question and discuss, but not to pass resolutions. We couldn't vote on the budget, basically. We could pass resolutions. Okay, in 1919, we were allowed to vote on the budget. So those powers are extended only later on. So this is just wrong. Okay, please to have these are all concepts of these related to decentralization. Please remember all this. Okay, try imbibing this in the pyramid of legislations that are given you. Okay, you must add all this in the pyramid of legislation. It's already there, but try envisioning that in the pyramid of legislations. That will help you crack such questions. Okay, so I hope the answer there is clear. The answer is none of the above. Everything is related to the 1909 Indian Councils Act, with the last one being a combination of 1909 and 1919. In the context of British administration, which among the following is our associate Lord Curzon? As Archaeological Survey of India? No. Lord Canning. 1861 is when the Archaeological Survey of India was formed. Do you know why the Archaeological Survey of India was formed? Because what happened was that there was an excavation held near in the northwest near Sindh, where very old ancient sites were uncovered. Basically, bones were uncovered in a lot of excavation sites near Sindh. Okay, this surprised a lot of British historians. They now, with renewed interest, decided to undertake excavations in that area, for which they wanted a body that would monitor and overlook and oversee all this. Okay, oversee all this. That is why, in accordance with the recommendation of Alexander Cunningham Lord Canning, a history enthusiast himself, decides to form the Archaeological Survey of India. Now, what was that site being excavated? It was a Harappan civilization. The British hadn't yet realized that it was the start of, or the excavations were the start of a set of excavations that would lead to the discovering of a or uncovering of a civilization. Okay, they just started excavating various small sites near Harappa and all that. Okay, Harappa wasn't yet discovered, but they just started excavating. Okay, so Lord Canning, Archaeological Survey of India. Now, the Preservation of the Archaeological Act, whereas the Preservation of Monuments and Archaeological Sites Act came as part of during the time of Curzon's tenure. Young Husband's expedition brought Tibet under the influence of the British Indian Empire. Okay, Young Husbands during the time of Curzon. That is all you need to know. That is all the funda that you need to know about this particular statement. Young Husband was a man. Okay, so appointment of Railway Commission for Education Reforms. Yes, the Indian Universities Commission, which on whose recommendations the Indian Universities Act was enacted. Okay, so remember that too. So the answer there is 2 and 3. Okay. Which of the following are correctly matched? Amrit Bazar Patrika, Shishir Kumar Ghosh, yes. Voice of India, Dadabhai Naoroji, yes. Swadeshi Mutran, G. Subramanian, yes. Okay, see, Swadeshi Mutran can be considered as one of the first Tamil vernacular newspapers. Okay, B.G. Tilak, Kesari. Again, Bal Gangadhar Tilakar's Kesari, Marathi newspaper. So remember all this. Amrit Bazar Patrika is a very important newspaper outlet since it was the main target, since that particular outlet was the main target of the Vernacular Press Act. Okay. Deshi Mitran, G. Subramanian, of course, the founder of the Hindu paper too, Hindu newspaper. Kesari, B.G. Tilak, of course. This was the outlet of the firebrand Bal Gangadhar Tilak, and it was his articles in this particular outlet that led to his imprisonment time and again under the charges of sedition. Okay, on the charges of seditious writing. Okay, remember that too. So all of the above. Which among the following are correct regarding Varda scheme of basic education? Now, what was correct? Varda scheme, what did it recommend? Gandhian system of education. It recommended for the establishment of the Gandhian system of education. Okay, what did Gandhi recommend? One, most important part, what did he recommend? One was both academic as well as vocational education, or vocational education, that is occupation, making the students capable of undertaking an occupation, that is self-reliance. Okay, so it focused on self-reliance basically. Okay. Now, it also wanted to reduce the influence of the English language, which is considered to be a foreign language, reduce the influence of English. This did not mean that it was this language. Okay. So done. Okay, so that was one other thing, which did not mean that it wanted to completely get it done away with. No. Okay, he just wanted the main vocation or the main medium of education to be vernaculars. Okay, so it proposed for inclusion of basic handicraft. Yes, it did. This is a form of occupation. Then it aims for free and compulsory nationwide education system through mother tongue. Yes, it did actually. Okay, but who headed the Varda committee, which finally gave a format for the Gandhian system of education, which recommended for a format for the Gandhian system of education? It was headed by Zakir Hussain. Okay, headed by Zakir Hussain, and its recommendations were submitted at the Haripura session. Remember that Haripura session 1938, headed by Subhash Chandra Bose. You should be familiar with that. Okay. Now, Which of the following was adopted? So this is the answer. So I hope you understood the answer 1 and 2. Which of the following was adopted by the British in pursuing the divide and rule policy? Birkenhead Challenge. Yes, we've already talked about it. Now, how did Birkenhead Challenge divide the Indians? The Birkenhead's original words were is as I describe now. Is as I describe now. See, basically, Birkenhead said that the Indians did not have the capability to formulate their own constitution. That is why the British have decided to appoint a commission that is to review the working of the Government of India Act. So he first tried humiliating the the intellect of the average middle class Indian. Okay, questioning the intellect of the average middle class Indian. The second part of the statement was that even if we were able to deliberate and finally evolve a constitution, this constitution would not be acceptable to all. Okay, which is actually showing divide and rule. See, he very intentionally put that particular quotation there. He knew that there was an internal tussle between the Muslim League and Indian National Congress in Indian politics. Okay, so he wanted to reiterate that particular part. So this is divide and rule. Okay, Government of India Act 1919 extended separate electorates. I don't have to mention about that. Extended separate electorates to that of Sikhs, Anglo-Indians, Europeans, etc. So that is a format of divide and rule. Communal award, of course, I don't have to substantiate, elaborate on that too. Okay, it was all the communal award that the depressed classes were offered separate electorates, ultimately refuted or debunked via the Pune Pact. Okay, so all three are correct, 1, 2, and 3. Now let's move on. With reference to Government of India Act 1935, which among the following is a part of reserve subjects of the federal government? Defense, yes. Tribal areas, yes. Local self-government, no. Too unimportant. Now, you may ask me why tribal areas was included. Missionary activity. It was to assist missionary activity, and also there are a lot of resources in the forest, especially timber, coal, etc., which the British wanted to exploit. Okay. Now, what were the other provisions under? Now, reserve list means we're talking about federal diarchy here. Federal diarchy here. What are part of reserve list? Foreign affairs. Then what else? Foreign affairs is one thing. Then what else? What else can you say was part of federal diarchy? Foreign affairs is one issue. Revenue, finance. Okay, these are the various tenets of Government of India Act 1935. So what's the answer there? 1 and 2. Okay. Now, next, with reference to judicial administration in colonial India, which among the following statements are correct? Diwani codes, Nizamat codes, Diwani codes, civil, Nizamat codes, criminal. So I hope your answer is clear. Both of this was introduced during the time of Warren Hastings. We've already discussed about that. His oriental inclinations, the way he decided to organize the judiciary. So I hope the answer there is clear. The answer is neither 1 nor 2. D. Which of the following provisions was the part of August Offer by Sir Lingo post-war body to create a constitution? Yes. Dominion status immediately after the end of the war? No. Indefinite time period. So that was the major flaw of the August Offer, that it never set a time period for the concept of dominion status actually to fructify. The time period was not set. That it just mentioned about India being given dominion status, but the time period was never specified. Whereas the Cripps Mission very specifically talked about a defined time period, a definite time period. Okay, that is after war. Okay, so that's the rectification that came about. Now, creation of War Advisory Council, yes. Okay, that was something that happened during the time of that was offered under the August Offer, the National War Advisory Council, the National Defense Council, both of which was formed as per the recommendations of the August Offer. Okay. So the answer there is 1 and 3. 17. Concept of bicameral legislature for the first time. Decentralization. Where did they appear for the first time? Government of India Act 1919. Bicameral legislative center, which was extended to the states via the Government of India Act 1935. Okay. Which among the following colonial laws are aimed at curbing the civil liberties of Indians? Vernacular Press Act, yes. Public Safety Bill, yes. Rowlatt Act, yes. So 1, 3, and 4. Whatever Hilbert will know, it actually provisioned greater powers to Indians, where Indian judges were empowered to trial even European offenders. So it brought a semblance of equality with regards to the judiciary. Okay, that is why it was opposed by the then incumbent European officers or administrators. The answer there is 1, 3, and 4. Let's move on. Which of the following is our features of Mountbatten Plan? Hindu majority states were denied the right to self-defense. Is that right? Yes, it is. By which I mean provinces. Which is understood. Hindu majority provinces were not given, not extended rights to self-determination. Do you know why so? What was there in the Mountbatten Plan? Only those areas that basically that was included as part of the Lahore Resolution was offered right to self-determination. That is, those areas which are those contiguous areas which had a dominant Muslim population were offered rights to self-determination. We are talking about the northwest and northeast. The rest of India, where the Hindus were a dominant community, did not have the right to secede. Only those contiguous Muslim populated areas had the right to secede. Okay, so a Madras province did not have the right to secede. A Bombay province did not have the right to secede. Am I clear there? Okay, that is something that a candidate must understand. Proposal for a boundary commission, yes. Ratcliffe. I don't have to elaborate on that. You are already familiar with that particular term. Ratcliffe. Okay, the Ratcliffe Committee. Now, proposal for referendum in Prince-Free states to determine which dominion to join? No, no such referendum existed. The Prince-Free states could join either India or Pakistan or remain independent. So the answer that is 1 and 2. Let's look at the 20th question. Okay, so this is something that could really confuse a candidate because these are all arenas where we've seen that decentralization process further consolidated. Now the answer that is Government of India Act 1935. I tell you why so. See, in the Government of India Act 1934-35, provincial diarchy was abolished and extended to the center, and thus elections conducted at the provincial level actually should have been conducted at the center too, but it wasn't. The British refused to hold elections to the central legislature for no reason. The excuse that given was because of war. Okay, so they didn't hold elections. But now what happened was that elected members dominated both the provinces as well as centers, at least with regards to numbers. So what did the British do? They tried empowering the office of the Governor General. Okay, they did it by eroding the powers within the office of the Secretary of State and then extending those powers to the Governor General. That is how the India Council was abolished. Council of India was abolished. Okay, the Secretary of State lost his discretionary financial powers, all of which were transferred to the Governor General. And in this particular act, there is something known as special responsibilities that was extended. Special responsibilities. Special responsibilities were extended. Okay, so remember this too. Special responsibilities meant even with regards to legislations, the Governor General had an overriding power when those those legislations would be enacted in certain legislations. This included defense. See, if the Legislative Council attempted at invoking a register or trying to get a resolution passed with regards to defense, then that could be easily nullified due to the overriding powers of the Governor General over very important strategic issues. This was extended to defense, also, foreign affairs, certain aspects of the budget. Even now, almost 80% of the budget was out of the purview of voting. Okay, most of it was under the discretionary powers of the Governor General. So now the Governor General was empowered. Okay, under this particular act, when decentralization was increasing, but nonetheless, most of the powers that was earlier enjoyed by the British government now and the Secretary of State was now being completely transferred to the Governor General, who was empowered and whose position was empowered and strengthened. That is why we call it constitutional autocracy. The thing was, he was made constitutionally very powerful. Okay, it is not that he was an monarch or something like that. His position was consolidated via certain constitutional provisions that was extended to it. Okay, so he had overriding discretionary powers. Remember that. So that was something that one must know. Now, in Indian modern history, the downward filtration theory is associated with British education system. Okay, 22. I don't have to mention about that. Macaulay's Minute. Please remember that. Which of the following statements are related to Rowlatt Act statements related to Rowlatt Act of 1919 is not correct. It was enacted to curtail the revolutions. Yes, it was. If you remember, this is why it tried strengthening sedition. Okay. It tried strengthening sedition. Remember that. Please remember, it tried strengthening the act of sedition. It also had a very draconian provision, which was that anybody could be imprisoned without trial for 2 years for undertaking really anti-national and subversive activities against the government, which was very, very draconian. Okay, remember that. So Rowlatt Act, it was actually an extension of the Defense of India rules, which was a which actually was wartime emergency provisions. Sorry, since a small connectivity problem. Defense of India rules. Okay, it seems to be extension of the Defense of India rules, which were rules that were enacted during the wartime, emergency provisions that were enacted during the wartime. The Rowlatt Committee actually attempted extending these emergency provisions into peacetime. That was why this was very controversial. Okay, see, the Defense of India rules curtail liberty, civil liberties, personal freedom, press, etc. That was because it was enacted during the time of war. See, we still have provisions in our constitution known as the emergency provisions. So it was something on that. It was something that was grounded on that philosophy. Now, what happened was the government decided to extend it to the peacetime. Okay, which is very dangerous. Now they could very randomly invoke such provisions and thus curtail civil liberties. Okay, this was why the Nationalist decided to protest. Now, Gandhi established Satyagraha. Yes, he did. He established Satyagraha Sabha to train the masses in the act of Satyagraha, but ultimately it did not succeed in its stated goal, because in large parts of the country, random violence emerged out, or there's sporadic and random violence that occurred. Okay, so which was against contrary to Gandhi's stated philosophy. Anyways, the British government was forced to withdraw the act with immediate effect due to growing resentment, which is wrong. The British government only withdrew the act in 1922. Okay, this is something that a candidate may not be privy about. This information is something that we don't go after. Standard books do not refer to such actions. That is the issue. Basically, the Rowlatt Act was never withdrawn immediately. It was only withdrawn in 1920. They only withdrew it in 1922 after the recommendations of a committee, okay, appointed by the British. So the Rowlatt Satyagraha, with regards to its immediate impact, was a failure. Okay, it did not lead to the withdrawal of the Rowlatt Act. Okay. Now, Muhammad Ali Jinnah resigned from the Imperial Legislative Council. Yes, he did. Of course, he did. He resigned from it, expressing disdain at the very insensitive attitude of the British towards the Indians via its inaction of the Rowlatt Act. Rowlatt Act, irresponsible inaction of the Rowlatt Act. Consider the following statements over the various. Look at the next question. So the answer there is C, which is not correct. This is not correct. So the answer there is C. Okay. Consider the following statements about the various legislation of British government. Regulating Act, double government, no. We have to. These are actually misplaced. Okay, so this would have been right. Supreme Court of Calcutta, yes, regulating act, system of double government. What is double government? Introduction of the board of control can be considered as a moment where the British decided to introduce the system of double government. Okay, where the court of both entities were functioned within the ambit of the company, but with regards to the court of directors, it comprised of the largest shareholders and the most prominent members within the company, whereas the board of control was constituted by member of parliamentarians to oversee the functions of the company. So this was a direct intervention of the British Parliament in the affairs of the East India Company via the board of control. So please remember that. But the board of control functioned within the East India Company. It managed the political and revenue affairs within the company, whereas the court of directors continued with managing affairs with regards to commerce. So commercial monopoly was handed over to the court of directors. Though commercial areas, commercial affairs are handed over to the court of directors. Now, Supreme Court introduced the Regulating Act. The Charter Act of 1833 ended the activities of East India Company. Yes, remember, trade monopoly completely eroded. Remember the pyramid of legislation. So all this is related to the pyramid of legislations. The theme is centralization. Okay. See, these are not questions that we try framing so as to fit our model. These are just questions that we had framed randomly, but fits our model. Okay, it seemed to fit our model. So that is how the UPC actually frames questions. It's the same philosophy. They have to include certain extremely crucial, important aspects of the act in their question. So these extremely crucial aspects are related to centralization, theme of centralization and decentralization. That is why we have to emphasize on that part. Most probably, you can crack the third option, which is the rogue option that is related to something else via using this technique. Okay, that is the idea that I have to lay out. The answer there is 3 only. Which of the following proposals were put forward by the Cripps Mission of 1942? An Indian Union with dominion status. Yes, it did. Time period was specified. Making of Indians constitution was to be solely in Indian hands. So this was the difference between the August Offer and the Cripps Mission. The Cripps Mission was actually an improvement on the August Offer, where dominion status at a definite time period, that is after war. The second was Constituent Assembly would comprise solely of Indians, whereas in the August Offer, it was said that it would be comprised of majorly of Indians, which opened up an area for the government to intervene. So under the August Offer, it would be mainly Indians, which means that the government could also intervene. Britishers could also intervene to a certain extent. Whereas in the Cripps Mission, it was exclusively included. It was exclusively, I understood that the Indians would have the sole powers of framing a constitution. So that too is right. Now, transfer of executive power of Viceroy's executive council to India. No. That did not take place during this time. So one of the reasons why the Cripps Mission actually failed was the inconclusive negotiations with regards to the defense portfolio. See, the Indians wanted the handing over of the defense portfolio to an Indian member. Okay, that was because, see, India was part defense portfolio to an Indian member. That was because India was also party to a war, to the First World War, and there are lots of expenses and activities taking place in the country on behalf of that particular event. Okay, so Indians wanted a significant role there. That is why the Indians requested for handing over the defense portfolio, which the Cripps Mission very vehemently opposed. Okay, it refused to offer finance portfolio, defense portfolio, as well as the home affairs portfolio. That is why we decided to pull back from the talks, because there was nothing more, there was no use if those portfolios remained with the British hands. So we couldn't undertake anything substantial in the country. Okay, so that is why that option is wrong. So the answer there is 1 and 2. Please remember that. Okay, last question. What were the essential differences between Macaulay's Minute and Wood's Dispatch? Can you tell me what were? Wood's Dispatch is known as the Magna Carta of Indian education. Wood's Dispatch wanted to enhance the government's role in widening the spread of education. Did it? Yes, it did. See, Wood's Dispatch was the first ever proclamation, official proclamation made by the British that placed the onus on the government to spread education among the masses. It placed an amount of responsibility on the government to encourage mass education. Okay, we are not talking about university primary education, but mass education. To a certain extent, it did place that responsibility. That is why the government decided to extend grants in aid. That is why the government decides to encourage the opening up of schools. That is also why the government encourages the opening up of colleges and also universities, setting up of universities in each presidency, all of which came as part of the Woods Dispatch. Vernacular, encouraging education in the vernaculars, at least in the lower classes. Okay, these are all recommendations that came about in the Woods Dispatch. So this is something that is right. Okay, so such a view is largely missing. Now, if the government's role in widening education was there, then is this, and Macaulay, it was missing in the Macaulay's minute, which talked about downward filtration. What is downward filtration? That is educating a few elites, okay, whose responsibility it was to duplicate and replicate or duplicate and disseminate that knowledge to the masses. So what happened was that the Macaulay's minute basically shunned away responsibility of mass education from the government. The government said that it was not responsible in undertaking mass education. All it was responsible was to educate a selected few who had enough wealth to finance their education, whose responsibility it was to then spread education to the masses. Okay, so the British government in toto literally reiterated the fact that it was just a colonial power which was not here to stay but rather to exploit. Okay, that is why it did not harbor any sort of interest in mass education. Whereas the Woods Dispatch, this particular philosophy was rejected, and it placed some sort of onus on the government to spread mass education. So Macaulay's recommendation for university farmers, no, this is an element of mass education that is there. It was Woods Dispatch which recommended for the constitution of universities to overlook higher education, oversee higher education. I'm sorry, there again, to supervise and oversee higher education. So I hope you understood. Strongly criticized so Macaulay recommendation university farmers was strongly criticized by the Woods Dispatch. Okay, which is wrong. It was the Woods Dispatch that recommended for it. Macaulay's minute had no such recommendations. The answer is one only. Now, for those who may feel that this test is difficult and beyond your capacity, don't worry. This has been framed in such a way so as to give you a challenging feeling. Okay, we have framed the question in such a way that one, the candidate may be challenged. The second, the candidate can be fed certain amount of information, additional information. Okay, that is why these questions have been framed. So don't worry, we have already gone through the UPSC questions, and you may have realized that the UPSC isn't so heartless. Okay, it is not that we are heartless, we just want to extend information to you guys. That is it, pump in knowledge and information to you guys. But the UPSC seems to have been framing really simple questions from these aspects. Okay, so don't worry at all. Continue with your preparation. Please do go to the frameworks. I promise it will help you out. Okay, so, thank you.